Dr. Brenda Kubheka Chauke is a physician, executive, entrepreneur, and bioethics scholar with over 20 years of leadership experience in healthcare governance, clinical operations, and ethical innovation. She holds a medical degree from Medunza, an MBA from Gibbs, a PDBA, a diploma in project management certificates in media and medicine and clinical ethics from Harvard Medical School, and an MSc in bioethics earned in 2025. She is the co-founder of Health IQ Consulting and Matched Media, supporting organizations in clinical risk management, ethics, research, and health communication. Please welcome Dr. Brenda.
Thank you, and good afternoon, colleagues. Firstly, let me thank James for inviting me this afternoon. I think my presentation is not projecting yet. Okay, yes. So thank you to the scheme for inviting me, and what I'm going to be talking about, I feel like I'm going to be singing to the choir, because the Western Cape is performing very well when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse. And at the same time, I feel so ashamed that I'm from KZN, the worst performing, the worst performing province when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse. So these are my disclosures, and sitting there, I was listening to the presentations earlier today on what the scheme is doing so well for its members. And I have to disclose that my mom is a GEMS member, and and I've sat on both sides of the table when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse as a medical advisor in that unit, and also as a principal for an emergency department practice. So I'm also bringing that experience in today's presentation. And this is my opinion. There is no GEMS logo there, so it's just us professionals speaking to each other. So this is the agenda for this talk. And then the main thing is just focusing on professionalism and using that as the foundation for our discussion or the talk on medical aid fraud. So what is professionalism? So the application of medical knowledge and expertise and the commitment to ethical conduct and competence and compassion in all interactions, and then prioritizing patient welfare. So it's not just the patient, we'll talk about it, it's also the society, and upholding the values of respect, integrity, and accountability. So if we think of a health professional, practitioner-patient relationship, it's a contractual relationship. So that relationship, in its foundation, there are these four values. One is honesty, so basically the transparency. And that is important, more so when it comes to issues around informed consent, etc., and what actually gets submitted to the medical aids, and patients being informed and being involved in decision-making as well. And then beneficence, which is basically acting at the best interest of the patient. So if we think of medical aid, benefits, it's basically ensuring that the benefits last as long as they can for the benefit of the patient and for the benefit of their family members. And then trust is quite key. If we think of the power dynamics in the practitioner-patient relationship, patient must trust that their interests are at the center of everything that actually takes place. And then non-maleficent, which is doing no harm or avoiding harm. Where harm is unavoidable, it's basically to minimize the impact of harm. But when it comes to the medical aid benefit and the harm that us as practitioners can cause, I will unpack that later. But importantly, we should aim to do good and to minimize or eliminate harm exposure to patients. So we look at practitioners as ethical anchors of trust. And this strong moral character of a practitioner will ensure that we uphold these values. I've already discussed beneficence, and non-maleficence, which is not causing harm, truthfulness, integrity, discernment, which is, practical wisdom. We have a pediatrician in the room. If the family brings a child that looks like a 14-year-old, but they say it's beneficiary number 2 who is 4 years old, practical wisdom should kick in that it can't be this child, And then accountability and conscientiousness. So when we look at trust, trust is normally a positive value, but there's also what we call immoral trust, the negative value of trust that enables unethical, thank you. Now I feel violated. Okay, I use a hearing aid, so I struggle with interference and stuff. And this one, I did not get it. Ishmael, I needed it. Okay, so I'll move to, I do apologize for that, yes. But now my privacy is violated. Yeah, so when trust becomes immoral, basically there's a trusting relationship between two parties or more, but this is for the benefit of, those two parties only at the cost of the rest of the system. So that's where collusion and corruption comes in. You can't be, we look at Madanga, etc. It's because there's relationships that exist, the relationships of trust, that their aim is to benefit, the individuals unfairly so and unethically so as well. So if we look at the trust triangle in the medical scheme environment, so we have a patient, we have professionals, and we have the medical scheme. So if we look at the practitioner and the patient, so the patients do trust that practitioners will act at their best interest, and they will reduce harm, they will involve them in decision making, and they will present information to the schemes also that is truthful regarding whatever conditions that they suffer from. And they will also act in a manner that doesn't exploit them financially, which is putting additional codes and claiming for services and items, for services not rendered and for items not issued. So promise keeping in this case enables therapeutic alliance and informed consent. When we think of promise keeping, so promise keeping is basically about communication, what has been communicated. So in this space, we're talking about contracts. So it could be a contract between a patient and the medical scheme, a contract between a practitioner as a designated service provider, et cetera, and with the scheme. So that is communication. And then the next thing is, what are the expectations based on that contract? And the last leg is about what actually happens. So those are the three legs of promise keeping. So when we think of now the practitioner and the medical schemes, obviously, the schemes, there is an expectation that the claims that get submitted are a true reflection of, one, the condition that the patient suffers from, and all the services and everything that was provided to the patient. So members also, they trust that the practitioners will actually uphold that, which is basically truthfulness, and they will present all the facts as they are. And then looking at the patient and the medical schemes, members, they trust that the schemes will honor all claims that are submitted by the medical schemes. But if we look at this, and also referring to a question that was raised by the colleague at the back, you can tell that the obligations that are shared in this tripartite relationship between patients, medical schemes, and practitioners. So yes, thanks to Ishmael. So I'm not going to be defining fraud. He's covered that. And then the question is, how does trust enable fraud? I've touched on it briefly, but these are just some of the examples that are fraudulent activities in clinical practice, where you find that maybe a practitioner actually recommends to the patient that if We use a diagnosis of major depression, it's prescribed minimum benefit, I'll be able to see you for, the next 6 months, which is basically altering the medical history of the patient. And then maybe there's collusion between, practitioners and patients and exchange of money for claims that are submitted. And then Ishmael did cover around the syndicates that also exist in defrauding the schemes. So, as mentioned earlier on, that yes, trust is there, but the negative part of it is when it enables unethical practice that benefits only 2-3 organizations, individuals, and defrauds the whole system. So if we look at health professionals, so the issue around the moral character of a practitioner plays a significant role in safeguarding the system against medical fraud. So this is reality, consumerism, which basically it treats medical care as a market commodity where patients behave like shoppers and healthcare practitioners feel pressured to satisfy those expectations. So patients come in, nothing wrong with their teeth, and they, and they ask for a gold tooth, and that gets claimed from a medical aid. So we also see some of the fraudulent activities where the pharmacy front shop, they use medical aid to claim for cosmetics, obviously not to claim for, they claim for, medically necessary services or items and issue, like cosmetics, nappies, et cetera, et cetera. So this is reality, and this is what we see in the real world. So what is driving consumerism in healthcare and fraud? So obviously there's pressure. If you think of, disposable nappies, now it's like a social status that I'm using disposable nappies, depending where you come from. Where I come from, in a small township, it's a big deal. You can afford. So it's a social class kind of issue. And if they can't afford, so there's pressure to go get the items, somewhere else. So you find that then there'll be maybe pharmacists that collude with patients and actually issue these. So consumer expectations can pressure practitioners into offering unnecessary service, claiming for services and items that are not medically necessary and that were not issued or provided. And you may find patients also demanding prescriptions. Patient comes in, has a viral infection, flu, whatever, and they left a grandmother at home with a UTI and put pressure on the doctor to prescribe for the UTI for the patient that is left at home. So these are all some of the pressures and requests that come from the patient's side. And then the entitlement mentality, and Ishmael did cover this, so it makes patients more willing to collude with practitioners where they accept kickbacks. When the practitioner is saying, but you've been paying 3,500 rands a month, but you've never been sick, so why not do this, why not do that, So that entitlement also can enable fraudulent activities, claiming for members that are not for members, for family members, or allowing family members that are not members of the scheme to actually access care. We've seen it. I mean, I worked in the ED for years in Soweto, and the patient admitted to hospital, you don't know, it's, Mrs. X brought in by husband, etc. Then the next thing, 3 weeks down the line, patient passes away, and that's the only time you get to hear that, no, this was not Mrs. X, actually. This is what was, information that was provided. And again, patients are saying, or members, they would say that, but I've been paying, I thought, I haven't been using my medical aid, maybe I might as well just give access to. So this highlights the significant role that health professionals can actually play in preventing medical aid fraud. So I stand here feeling guilty for a medical scheme that doesn't exist anymore, that I belonged to when I was an intern in KZN again. And yes, so I was an intern, and yes, so in the ED, emergency department, conversations around, you can get Green Cross shoes and sunglasses, from this pharmacy will take you there. It was the first time ever I was a main member of a medical aid, and the only reason I went to a doctor in my life was because of my ears and nothing else. So I had no. Remember the scheme rules, there's no induction, a welcome pack, that what's a medical aid, what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. I went there, I got my sunglasses, I got my 2 pairs of Green Cross shoes that I used to wear when I was working in the emergency department. But if someone at the pharmacy, a professional, told me that no, medical aid is not for that, this is what it should actually do. But again, if we think of the impact of the environment where maybe members find themselves in, and the normalization of unethical practices, so patients expect certain things because it's like it's acceptable, but there is a significant role that you as professionals can play in educating patients what the medical aid benefits are for, and then again, the NO to say, no, we're not going to do this, etc. And then lastly, it's the business competition that may pressure practitioners to engage in unethical practices, because I'm scared that I'll lose my patient or my patients because everyone is going to pharmacy X or clinic Y. So maybe I must keep up with what they are doing to attract clients. We're not saying patients, to attract clients. So these are some of, some of the challenges that practitioners face, but importantly, I'm just highlighting the active role that practitioners can play in preventing medical aid fraud, and also in educating the members on how to understand their entitlements, etc. So consumerism does distort, the ethical relationship between the practitioner and patients. So practitioners to patient, the trust shifts from the ethical care to customer satisfaction, So customer is about foot traffic. Care is about making sure patients get better and improve the quality of life. So it shifts that. So promise keeping becomes conditional or transactional, because again, it is about what the practitioner or what the member will gain from this. And then a practitioner may also betray the scheme's trust in order to please patients. So trust, I did mention that the contractual relationship as well that practitioners have, especially that they have with the schemes, and then also the pressure that may come from patients, or the request that may come from patients, and the financial incentives associated with that, like driving expensive cars, et cetera, may also distort that relationship. So patients may end up, looking at schemes or viewing schemes as adversaries that are preventing them from providing or expanding care to their family members who are not beneficiaries, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I want to elevate that there is a significant role that you as health professionals and practitioners can play in mitigating medical aid fraud. So what are the duties of health professionals? So the duties are the duty to do good and the duty to avoid, harm, which is a negative duty. So the natural duties are to do no harm, promote good and be just, And then fiduciary relationships, obviously we've said, it's a contractual relationship that the practitioner needs to uphold. So in that contractual relationship, so it's not just about the care, it is about the care, but also the finances that come out as a result of the care. So if the patient has been, was consulted for a, let's say, simple ear infection, and the consultation is claimed, the medication that was issued is also claimed for, and nothing in addition should be added that was not provided as care or as medication to take at home. And then the professionals also, practitioners, we have a duty to institutions, like, for example, the contractual relationships between practitioners and the schemes. And again, that contractual relationship that as professionals, practitioners, you take with you wherever you go. It's with the regulators, your SUNC, your HPCSA, Pharmacy Council, etc. So that is another, because you belong to the, you become a member of a professional body, and there's an expectation that you will abide by the code of conduct and what is expected of professionals that belong in that professional body. So we'll look again at the duties of the practitioners. So earlier on, I did say that the duties of practitioners, they go beyond the duty they owe patients. So practitioners have a duty, the first one, the duty to self. Yeah. I always say self-care is an ethical duty, so duty to self, but also the continuous development, making sure that we keep up to date with scientific development, up to date with any changes in coding, which has an impact on claims, et cetera, et cetera. And then for those who are outsourcing, their claims, you still have a duty of overseeing that whatever that gets submitted to the schemes, although HPCSA says you should, okay, I'll leave it there, okay. But I have to disclose I serve in the HPCSA Professional Conduct Committee. So it's one, should you be outsourcing, the claims to be managed by a third party? And then two, what mechanisms have been put in place in your practice to ensure that they actually claim they claim ethically for the services that were provided, et cetera. And if their reimbursement is percentage-based, that also presents a risk of if we claim more and we get paid 5% of the revenue generated by the practice, it's an incentive in a way to put additional codes, et cetera, et cetera. So as practitioners, there is that duty. And then the duty to patients, I think I've covered that enough, but more importantly is to reduce or prevent harm. So again, harm is not just physical. Obviously, patient safety is important. We must make sure that we prescribe the right medication for the right conditions and for the right patients, but we must also prevent financial harm, where patients now have to pay out of pocket for things that they shouldn't be paying for out of pocket because maybe what was claimed or what was claimed, et cetera, et cetera. So it is the psychological harm, it is the financial harm, it's the physical, et cetera. And then respecting others, practitioners have a duty. So informed consent is important from what gets submitted to the scheme as an ICD-10 coding. Patients may choose that I do not want, let's say, my scheme, for whatever reason, to know that I have condition X, Y, Z. So there's allowance on ICD-10 coding for that. And then respect for others also means that there must be shared decision-making and there must be transparency as to what is going to be claimed for from the scheme, and yes, it must be justifiable as well. And then the duty to the health professions. So not just because, let's say, I'm a medical practitioner, I have a duty to medical, the medical practitioners, but to all health professionals is what we owe the professions in ensuring that we preserve the trust that the society has on the profession and the health system. I mean, how embarrassing it is when you hear, people saying, oh, I don't trust you guys because of, then they'll give reasons, and stuff based on their experiences, based on what they've read in the news, etc. And patient deferring treatment because now they think that Dr. X is recommending, let's say, a hip replacement because they just want to make money. It is because of the things that they hear and the things that they see regarding unethical practice, which also now makes them not to trust, practitioners and thinking that it's all about, we just want to make, and buy that car and buy that house, etc. And then duty to society, patients come from the society. I'll cover a bit about the impact of medical aid fraud, outside of the patient and the practitioners, which basically highlights the impact on the society. But importantly, yes, health practitioners must be transparent, must be truthful, and also are accountable for the decisions they make and all that they do and the omissions as well. So the duties to the society, so I'll refer to the social contract, and if you think of the president was also at some point talking about the social compact, but it's basically a set of rules that rational people will agree to obey for their mutual benefit, provided that other people will abide by them as well. So this is also the foundation of a professional conduct, but in what is relevant, what we're talking about, or I'm talking about today, is that as practitioners, we have responsibility to the society. One, just by being good citizens, and then protecting the public from harm, or protecting our patients from harm, yes, financial, psychological, physical, and then also the resources are limited. I think Ishmael did say, or did mention, that the costs, yes, are escalating, but there's a need to ensure that the scheme remains sustainable, the private sector remains sustainable. So if there is wastage and fraud, that actually threatens the sustainability of the health system. So now, I want to talk to your hearts, not your minds. So as human beings, we are interconnected, so we are related. So what we do has an impact on others, and it also comes back to bite us as well. So when it comes to medical aid fraud, everyone pays a price. So how do we pay the price? It's a high premiums. So as health professionals, you're also medical aid members. So it does affect all of us at the end of the day. And then if we're talking about benefits, so restricted benefits, the co-payments, etc. If I was on GEMS, I don't think I would have paid for the co-payment for my hearing aid, but somewhere else, co-payment, yes, 30% upfront before you actually get a hearing aid. And in my past experience, there's a scheme that was defrauded by practitioners in that space. They went to a municipality, listed everybody, and claimed hearing aids for everyone that raised their hand, and they got, I think, between 5,000 and 10,000 rands back as a, yeah. So that's what's happening out there, and I can see Western Cape people are like, where, what? Yes. So, and then there's co-payments. If you think about co-payments, we need to take off the hat of a practitioner. Yes, patients need to pay 20% co-payment to access X and Y, but we never think of who defers care because they cannot afford a co-payment. So there's bigger implications. So it's not just for the patients, but it's for us and also our loved ones who are members of medical aid. And then the administrative burden that comes with motivating for X and motivating for Y, again, because of overusage, overutilization, and abuse of certain benefits. Reputational damage if you get arrested by Ishmael. And then, yeah, and then the social cost. So the impact, this is close to my heart. I lost my sister in January last year. Yeah, professional, no chronic conditions, etc. Today, it's more than a year later, we haven't received payments for her life cover because of non-disclosure of conditions she never suffered from. So only the doctor knows, it's not done yet, but only the doctor knows how those ended up in a file. And the insurer, they had asked for a 12-month report from the medical scheme, and then all the doctors that came from that report, they asked for 12-month report of a medical history. So I think we need to think beyond just the immediate benefit of gaining access, etc., but the impact of medical aid fraud, just because you want to gain access to benefits, what it does to the medical history of the patient. And I'm standing here and I'm saying, if we do not get anything, that doctor will pay. So I need us to understand that it's way beyond, yes, excuse me, but it's way beyond just the transactional thing. It has a huge social impact because it talks to the house where the children actually stay, the schools where the kids go to, et cetera, et cetera. So I need us also to think of the impact of falsifying medical information just for the benefit of gaining access to benefits or payments. So looking at the bioethical principles and what we are discussing today, firstly, the autonomy. I've already spoken about the importance of ensuring that patients are respected and they're respected, and the informed consent also is quite critical. So patients must be aware of what is being billed, and they must give consent for treatment, etc. We see it at HPCSA. When patients get, they have to pay a bill from the hospital or the doctor's room because the medical scheme didn't pay for everything. The biggest problem is the communication, which is patients walk out of the rooms or of the hospital not knowing. And then beneficence is acting at the best interest of patients and avoiding unnecessary tests and the kickbacks, whether we're talking about patients getting, pathology tests every day of the same, like mentioned by our colleague, Vuyo earlier on. And then non-maleficence, do no harm, and preventing fraudulent practices that risk patient safety or trust. And then it's all about rejecting kickbacks for referrals that may lead to inappropriate treatment or service overutilization. And then lastly, justice. It's about ensuring that there is fairness in the distribution of benefits and burdens. And if here we're talking about medical resources and the duty of the professionals to report fraudulent activities. And obviously we all understand the benefits of minimizing or eliminating medical aid fraud for all of us and for the healthcare system. So the ethical duties, in summary, ensure accurate documentation and billing, verify patient information, bill for services provided, uphold professional values, and avoid unnecessary services, report suspected fraud, and I'm hoping that the QRS code for Ishmael's unit will be available next time. And then patient education, and again, the importance of auditing and making sure that what is being claimed or what was claimed from the schemes does get audited and checked, that it's truthful and a reflection of what actually happened. So in conclusion, fraud in healthcare is not a victimless act. It harms patients, practitioners, and the entire health system, co-payments, high premiums, etc. Professionalism and ethical practice remain the strongest safeguards against misconduct and fraud. So we understand the role that health professionals play and can play in preventing fraud. By upholding duty, integrity, accurate billing, transparency, and accountability, practitioners protect patients and preserve the limited resources. Again, if we don't play our part, benefits will be restricted, more services will be subjected to co-payments, etc. And practitioners are ethical anchors whose conduct shapes public trust, scheme sustainability, and the quality of care. So yes, we need to protect also that trust that should be there. So everyone pays the price for fraud, but everyone benefits from ethical practice. So medical aid fraud is professional failure. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Brenda. Are there any questions for Doctor? Before I take a question, I just want to remind you that some of the WhatsApp questions that's been coming through, we will answer them, if not in this session, then afterwards in writing. But also this recording will be on the portal, all right, just for easy access. We have one question over there. Thank you.
Much, and that was a really great discussion around ethics. Can I ask a question in general when it comes to ethical practice from the scheme's perspective? So here we've been discussing fraud quite a bit. We understand it's rife. There's a lot of waste, there's a lot of abuse within the healthcare system. However, what is the responsibility of schemes to be ethical, transparent, and professional in providing all the information that they accuse in healthcare professionals of? So in instances where they then will send a letter to a healthcare professional, it's not clear. The healthcare professional is trying to be professional, asks for all the information related to it, to engage to get to that point. However, it's not forthcoming from schemes. How ethical and transparent and professional is that in the industry?
Okay, now, tricky question that I want to throw to Ishmael. Yeah, but before, is Ishmael here? Yeah, okay, great stuff. Yeah, it's echoing. Okay. I think it's the second or third slide that I projected that talks about the fiduciary relationship and the importance of honesty, which is transparency, and trust. And then also, if we look at that triangle, promise-keeping triangle, so transparency also comes in there, and it is about, yes, communication, what is expected, and what actually gets done. I'm responding to you like a politician, so I will allow, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, thank you. I mean, that is a very excellent question. As I've indicated, we operate in a highly regulated environment. You know, the Council of Medical Scheme keep us on check and on our toes at all times. So there is a responsibility on medical scheme to act in a particular way. And similarly, as you will be aware that any action of the scheme or any of its appointed, you know, administrators, the scheme takes full responsibility of those actions. So our relationship with our administrators, you know, is governed by agreements. You know, there's penalty clauses in terms of, we get reports of service failures, and those failures could have a drastic impact on the practitioner itself. So we do have that responsibility as the scheme. So and we don't do anything, we get penalized by the by the regulator. I mean, they institute what we call Section 43 inquiries, Section 44, and it has to deal with the conduct of the medical schemes. Remember, each and every, we have a fully capacitated complaints division. That complaints division does not only deal with complaints by members against the scheme, but it deals with complaints by practitioners against the scheme. If I implement indirect payment or I withhold your claims for more than 30 days, that can be penalized. The scheme can be penalized for that. We need to act in a particular way also to make sure that there is this reciprocal responsibility. Yes, it's an excellent question. So we are kept in check. Oh, shucks, there's hands coming up.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think maybe another part of it refers to what are the escalation processes that are available. And I want to believe that when additional questions are responded to, maybe that information will also be included there.
Thank you. So, check, Ishmael, so you're saying then the Council of Medical Schemes would be the route to go? Okay, thanks.
Can I respond? Can I respond? I'm going to I'm protecting Ishmael. So ideally, escalate internally before going to the Council of Medical Schemes. So I'm trusting that that information will be shared when, after this session as to who, how to escalate and stuff. But the council should be the last resort. But they have a responsibility of, ensuring that everyone does what they should.
I'm not sure if I misunderstand now, but maybe if I'm talking from the side...
May I ask if you can speak louder, please?
Is this better? Even more? Okay. If I understand this correctly, and I'm talking now from a patient's side, am I now... so I am, as a patient now, I trust James that as my medical fund, that they will take care that what I put down as signed consent, informed signed consent, that you will take care that I will get the treatment that I signed for.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Yes.
I'll try and explain. So will James be responsible that I will get the treatment that I understand the healthcare professional promised me in the signed consent I gave?
Okay. Okay, no, thank you for repeating the question. Remember that as a patient, you have a contractual relationship with your practitioner. With your practitioner. That is a protected space and relationship between you and your practitioner. And when you sign consent, the scheme will never know what was shared with you, what did you discuss, because it should be shared decision-making and et cetera. So the scheme doesn't get the view of the actual document of signed consent. We assume that by virtue of being in hospital, you are not dragged there, you are there because you know that care will be provided to you. So regarding the quality of care, et cetera, that is between the practitioner and probably the hospital that I always say they provide the stadium for the practitioners to, practice their craft, and then yourself.
So definitely I must understand it then, because I'm talking, let me put a practical example. The doctor asked, for instance, the orthotist to please give me as the patient a walking aid for a period. And then the orthotist will come to me and ask me to sign that she will provide me with that and that I will pay that. But now I was still a little bit unconscious with the anesthetics, and she didn't explain, or the education wasn't properly, and now I felt like I was a little bit bullied, for instance, in signing that because I didn't use it really, and so. But I do understand now that you say I was misunderstanding, because I thought that, well, yeah, I can now come and appeal with the medical aid because.
Yeah. So that what you've just raised now, it's a professional issue. One, because if you give informed consent, the 5 elements of informed consent, I'm just gonna, like voluntariness is one of them, and your capacity to make a decision. So if you are under, those 2 already are compromised. So if there is a concern, it's a concern related to the professional practice of a practitioner, which if you wanted to raise it, it's within the institution, etc., and then you have avenues, whether it's HPCSA, SANC, or wherever, where you can raise it, because it's a professional practice issue.
I'll allow one more question, and then I would like us to break for lunch before the food spoils.
I won't keep you from your meal. But the interesting thing for me is the responsibility from the scheme's side to the practitioner. When we phone the call center and we are blocked and we ask to speak to the supervisor or to escalate to your consultant, feedback is never carried through. We don't get the phone call from your consultant. It's impossible to get a hold of your supervisor, who is always at meetings. It is a major irritant.
Where's our SPN in the house? Are they here? Thank you. In the back.
I think it would be maybe, best to get more information. Which type of practice are you? Is it related to hospital orths? Is it related to orthotics? I think it's a bit difficult for us to comment now, but we do have an escalation process. So even if you can't get hold of the team leader, there is a process where you can actually email the team leader and the manager, as well as the senior manager. And then also, if you want to, for example, make an appointment to speak to the medical advisor, there is also a link, for example, linked in the FP guide, where you can actually click on it and it allows you to make an appointment with our medical advisor. So I think maybe I may just need a little bit more info so I can guide you in terms of the process. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. I would like to encourage everyone to please try and access the service providers at their tables outside. I actually encourage you to do so. I think there's a lot of white elephants in the room that needs to be addressed, and that's your perfect opportunity. And now, with no co-payment in mind, please maybe go off to lunch. I think we shall return here by, let's see, make it 14:30, just for the stragglers. Thank you.